has absolute control of everything.
Yeah.
Um, there have been, reports and rumors that he's planning really unpopular measures for after the election, so that way people don't have a way to express their discontent. This goes from really big tax increases on businesses to even possibly a second wave of mobilization for the war.
It is coming up to 6:10. Voters in Russia go to the polls today, although, of course, there is only one outcome to be expected from this election. There will be another term in office for Vladimir Putin. But even if Putin is certain to be returned to power, governments in the West will be watching closely to see if the rubber stamping election shows any cracks in public opinion for the Russian leader, of course, as war in Ukraine continues. Samantha Berkhead is editor-in-chief of the Moscow Times, an English-language newspaper that's been declared a foreign agent by Russia. Samantha, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So, Russian elections really have been kind of performative exercises in fake democracy, if you like, for many years now. And this latest round promises to be really no different. So what is it about? What should we be looking for within this Russian election?
So, yeah, obviously the election is just a way for the Kremlin to show its people inside Russia as well as people in the West that the country is rallying around Putin and rallying around the war in Ukraine. So it's mainly to send a propaganda message. But I think we should be looking for any evidence of, supporters of Alexei Navalny are being called to go to the polls on Sunday at noon to, kind of show in a visible way their opposition to the Kremlin. Um, and yeah, I mean, the challenge with this is that the state has taken so many steps since the last election to make it less possible to monitor the election and less possible to even see the results. When you copy the data from the election commission into an Excel spreadsheet, it turns the numbers into letters, so you can't even analyze it really closely. So yeah, I think the best way we'll be able to gauge the mood is by looking at footage of the polling stations.
Yeah. In terms of, I suppose, then, a potential noticeable opposition to Vladimir Putin, how can that be expressed during a general election period like this? And what impact or effect can it have in reality?
So yeah, there were a number of genuine independent anti-war candidates, and they had generated mass support in the lead up to the election, but they were both barred from the ballot. Um, Again, yeah, I think seeing these long lines of people at polling stations at noon on Sunday of opposition supporters is one way to measure it. There's also a number of Russians, both inside the country and outside the country, who are, they're deciding whether to vote for this one candidate who's kind of a token pro-peace candidate, even though he's not really, he's part of the parliamentary party, so he's not truly independent. People see him as the genuine alternative in this case. Some people are going to spoil their ballots. Some people are just going to boycott the vote. So, yeah, there's a lot of different tactics.
Yeah, it's fascinating there. In terms then of this election, is this really about what kind of leader Putin will be in his fifth term? Is there likely to be any noticeable change? What happens in a fifth term? And I suppose, to what extent will his leadership in this term be influenced by other elections taking place this year? I'm thinking primarily of the UK and the US, particularly the US perhaps, where we could see the return of President Trump. And I wonder if that influences a fifth Putin term in Russia in any way.
Yeah, I think with this term, Putin will likely, you know, continue what he's been doing because he has absolute control of everything.
Yeah.
Um, there have been, reports and rumors that he's planning really unpopular measures for after the election, so that way people don't have a way to express their discontent. This goes from really big tax increases on businesses to even possibly a second wave of mobilization for the war. Um, in terms of the election in the West, I'm not sure if he is necessarily going to be influenced by what happens there. It's interesting that he's kind of said he would prefer Biden as president in the US over Trump, but this could always be some kind of manipulation or reverse psychology.
Yeah. And so then, when it comes to, I suppose, what to expect over the next few days, Samantha, just outline for us how this election works, how it plays out in the coming days.
Right. So it's taking place over 3 days, and people are already voting in the occupied territories of Ukraine. They've been voting since last week. Um, and even there, it's a lot more heavily restricted. So we will be seeing people from across Russia being pressured to vote by their employers and by their educational institutions. Um, there are a lot of incentives for people to vote because the fact is that people don't really want to vote because there's so much apathy. So people are being offered raffles to win Dyson air dryers and like cars and
Right.
other, prizes.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of how they're luring people to the ballot. Um, so yeah, we can expect a lot of those kind of things. And yeah, on Sunday, definitely, Moscow prosecutors have threatened members of the opposition who go to those rallies on Sunday with criminal charges. So it will really be a test of how heavily they're going to crack down on this movement.
Yeah. Well, Samantha, thank you very much. That's such helpful context and backdrop to what is happening. We'll keep an eye on it from here over the course of this weekend. Thanks for joining us, Samantha.
Thank you.
Samantha Berkhead, editor in chief of the Moscow Times, a news.